PGC is right around the corner, so I thought I'd make a quick video telling you what's going on, who's playing, what they're playing for, if we're gonna have to expect any hot drops, and how you can optimize your fantasy team. PGC, or the PUBG Global Championship, is the biggest tournament in the year. It's where we crown our champions, and it starts on November the 28th, where we'll have the first 6 days of group stage. So we have 2 groups, and each group plays 3 days. That's honestly way more than we would see in, for example, a PGS. The weekend after, the 5th of December, and we have the last chance stage where we're going to qualify the last few teams to the finals, leading to the finals on the next weekend, so the 12th of December. The format this year is really different, and it's actually really exciting. So we have 32 teams in 2 groups. We'll talk about who's in which group later once we have the format out of the way, and they're going to play 3 days each. After those 3 days, the top 5 from each group go straight to the final. The bottom 3 is eliminated. They go home. So the teams going to the last chance are only the middle 8 of each group. So that means there's basically gonna be no one at the end of those 3 days that isn't either playing for finals or against elimination in that last day, and that's super exciting. It doesn't matter if you can't hit top 5 anymore. You cannot fall into that bottom 3, and it's actually a really cool way of doing groups, in my opinion. The last chance stage is a classic 16-team stage, but only 5 teams advance. Because if you did the math, right, 5 teams per group, 5 plus 5 is 10, and now we have the last chance stage will have just a normal 3-day 16-team stage with the top 5 teams going to the finals. Now we have 5 from each group and 5 from last chance. That's 15. That is because the best tie team is also directly invited to finals. So Full Send is going straight to the finals. They're not playing any of that stuff. Fully invited. Final is going to be another best of 18, so across 3 days. New format's really good, honestly. I think this is probably the best format we've ever had. The only thing that's a little annoying is obviously the invite to the finals, but I think they just really want to have host representation in the finals, so that's what they did. Prize pool is 1.5 million, by the way. We don't really know how it's split up yet, but it's a big chunk of cash. Let's talk about the teams. When we look at the teams who qualified, we have 8 from PGS again, and then way more from the regions because we have 32 teams this year instead of 24. Looking at PGS teams first, you see 3 EMEA teams in there. That's Twisted Minds, VP, and BB. So BB did so well in the first 2 PGSs that they qualified regardless of not making it to the last 2. That also means these 3 teams make up 3 more slots for Europe, which is always nice to see. Balkans from Americas, the only Americas team that consistently did well internationally this year. Same thing is true for 17 Gaming from China. And then Forest Natural Gaming got picked up by Made in Thailand. So they were one of the really strong APAC teams, actually the strongest APAC teams internationally, better than Expendables, better than T5, better than the Arena. So they deserve that slot. And then we have the Freaks and Gen G from Korea. Gen G doing terribly in the last PGS, but overall still good enough with a roster that people didn't have a lot of expectations for. So I'd love to see it for them. Looking at EMEA, we have GK, who got second in EMEA after winning the first one and doing pretty badly in the second. FaZe Clan, solid performances throughout the 2 PECs, guaranteed them a slot. And then Slam G actually got picked up by Team Orchid. So that's a new pickup. Slam G did not even make it to the first PEC, but got second in the second, and that is enough. And then Navi and Nemiga Gaming are the 2 teams that got a slot from other teams. So Navi got 6th. They wouldn't have gone in usually. And Nemiga Gaming, that's the org that picked up Unadai. They were in 8th in Europe, but because 3 teams ahead of them made it through PGS points, they get to play PGS as well. So we're finally going to see Unadai on LAN. In Americas, we have Team Liquid, Furia, Alcazia, and Rock. You've seen it at internationals. They've been good here or there, just not super consistent. And then Mission Ready International Alliance, worst team name ever, which is Michael's team, made it through the Americas region as well with a really good PIS. They have now been picked up by the Copenhagen Wolves as well, so you love to see that. APAC is the Expendables, T5, E-Arena, Anyone's Legends, and Sharper Esports. Anyone's Legend is Hima's Tycon team, so a lot of people are happy to see them at PGC, and I don't have to tell you much about the others. Sharper got 9th in the region, but because PUBG loves Thailand or something, I'm not sure what the reason is. PUBG said, we're gonna qualify the best Thai team that didn't qualify. Yeah, so that is the 9th place because 7 and 8 are both Vietnam. I don't know. Full Sense is, like I said before, invited to the finals. That means there's a whole bunch of APAC teams in this tournament. Looking at China, we got Pero, JDG, GSW, 4 Angry Men, and Change the Game. Pero, by far the best China team locally, regionally, internationally, they were pretty whack, but to be fair, they played half of their tournaments without Ix left. JDG or JD Gaming didn't do well at the first part of the year, but then they won the second part. In my opinion, they don't look good at all internationally. I think they're gonna have a hard time. They're just lacking really hard in the macro department. Game start win. Solid, decent, average team. Got top 8 both times. I think the same is true for 4 Angry Men and CTG. None of them have really shined that much internationally, and I will have to wait and see how they do. For me, China is looking really weak this season, but you never know. Ixleft can always pop off, and 17 is still an S tier team or a high A tier team. So it's a very top heavy region, maybe similar to the Americas. Korea, on the other hand, has been dominated by the Freaks, who have qualified through PGS points, leaving their spot open for T1, Beigopar, FN, and Pentagram to pick it up. FN is the old Dynamite walk, so always love to see them do well. Beigopar is PO and friends, but then somehow they're also good without PO, which is completely crazy. They were, I think, massively outperforming expectations at PGS. They got an 11th and then a 4th, which is absolutely wild considering that it's literally a team that PO made and then he had to go to military service. So I don't know. They're the happy uncles, you know. They're always happy. They're always great, having fun. So they're playing SMGs, bolts. I mean, I don't know why they're at PGC, but they're apparently really good. If I had to single out a few favorites, you cannot go past Twisted Minds. They are the best team in the world, and they showed that at EWC. They showed that in Europe, won their region clearly the favorites, but that doesn't seem to mean much. PUBG is super dynamic. I think nobody expected Expendables to win last year. Then they won it and they haven't done anything since. So it's really hard to predict anything. Falcons are also a top tier team despite looking terrible at PGS 10. The Freaks are really good, except they seem to be choking second day or third day a lot. 17 with the right kind of momentum and the right kind of start to the tournament, I think can be super dangerous. It's really hard to say. VP looked super good here and then. BB looked super good in the early PGSs and then just fumbled regionally. There's a ton of APAC teams with insane fragging power. There is a GK that won the first regional in Europe. A Navi where nobody ever knows what to expect. There's Pero in the mix where if Ixleft has a good day, they are a massive team. I think T1 looked really good for a part of the year as well. It's really hard to say. Full Sense is farming every group stage and then sucks in the finals, but now they just get invited to finals. So I don't know, maybe that just flips. It is incredibly hard to predict anything. All I know is we're gonna send the best teams to the finals because this format allows for a lot of group stage and a really competitive group stage, and I love it. Talk about the groups really quick. There's group A and B. They're part snake seeded and part just normal seeding. I don't love talking about groups that much because I think the impact isn't as big as people think. The biggest impact in groups is generally a lot of loot spots. I think if you're a heavy edge team and you have other heavy edge teams in your lobby, that can be annoying, but the odds that you consistently meet on the same side of the circle on the same edge are very low, except if you loot the same spots. So you can look at the groups while I'm yapping about this, but I don't think there's a ton to read into here. The main thing you're gonna have to worry about is, do your fantasy players hot drop each other on day one? I think that's very unlikely. I think everybody is going to dodge the hell out of hot drops because not only do you have a chance to lock in the finals, you also have to avoid going home, right? You cannot, if you start really badly on day one, suddenly you're thinking about a bottom 3 and you're afraid of a bottom 3, and that would be a terrible spot to be in mentally. Flicking through the drop maps really quick, and you have to give a massive shout out to Zenny. I think he wrote a bot that basically takes all the inputs from the players in the drop spot channel in the Discord and makes a drop map out of it. So if you see a team that's in green, that means that's the main loot spot, and if you see a team that's in red and the other way around, then that is sort of an old spot. And then, oh man, he even marked the contests orange. Zenny, an absolute legend. And we can very quickly see that both Genji and GK would like to loot Fairy Pier on a Wrangle in Group A, and we have 4 AM and T1 in Yasnaya. This was actually an interesting thing in in PGS, where Falcons decided to try and grief for him a little bit because they didn't want them in the finals because they wanted to loot Yasna in the finals. Switching over to Miramar, you see JDG and T1 in Chumacera. Both teams that can be quite stubborn when it comes to hot drops. But again, I think at PGC, most teams are going to look elsewhere. And with spots like Cruz and La Corberia still free, I think there's a good chance that somebody makes a switch. And then you can also always just loot right in between Chumacera and Picaro. That is completely possible. You hot drop for the church. You hope that they leave into Chumacera and you have that whole, what we used to call BBL split or DA split, or everything that's just in between Picado and Chumacera. On Tego, we got the absolute standard Buxansa hot drop, Genji with Alcazia. Alcazia is going to dodge, even if they say they won't, like nobody ever says they won't. And right now I see that BB split. I don't know who's going to dodge. Somebody is going to dodge that. That's not a hot drop that makes any sense to take, in my opinion, especially when BB split is still free. So that's southwest of DK and southwest of Hosan. And I think that's a massive, like really, really good spot to take. So I would hope that we don't see a hot drop here either. On Rondo, we have a hot drop west of Test Track with Furia and 17. It's a horrible spot to hot drop. It's a lot of small compounds. So either you 4-man drop on one guy or you all fight it out in one compound. Nobody gets loot. You get bullied by DNF and Twist immediately third-partying you. It doesn't make a ton of sense, but I do not see 17 backing away from an Americas team that didn't make the last globals. That being said, when we're looking at the edges of the map, the west edge and the north edge of the map are basically unoccupied. These are only alt drops. So if Furia was willing to play a bit of a different game from the edge, leverage the gliders, that would be a good option. That being said, I feel like they do rely on central spots for their early rotations quite a bit on quite a lot of maps. So maybe giving it up also isn't a great option for them. But if there's one map where you want to loot edge, it's Rondo with the gliders. Jumping over to Group B, we have a bit of a different picture because we have more edge teams in Group B, it feels like. At Wrangle, we have FaZe versus CGG and Milta. That's two very stubborn teams. CGG just classic Chinese team that doesn't like backing away from anything. And then FaZe Clan, the most stubborn European team. They've shown at past PGSs that they're okay with hot dropping. And I think they're going to try and show that again here. So a lot of the logos overlapping on this Erangel are just alt drops on other teams' main drops. Those are very pointless. In a way, when you look at if GSW says when we can't go west, we will go to where Copenhagen Wolves are, that's not likely going to happen. I think you're basically always going to respect a main drop. But for example, the Bagopar one is interesting because in a south plane, they might end up on Novo. In a north plane, they might end up on Zaki. And BB wants both of those spots as well. So they're clashing here a little bit with alt drops of BB. Switching over to Miramar, we have a Monte Nuevo contest and what you could call a Los Leones contest, but it's not really a contest. Los Leones is absolutely massive. It's going to be awkward for both teams if they're both there because you always have the risk of somebody running at you, but usually they're going to be okay in most games here. FaZe and Liquid both going for Minas Generales. Yeah, I speak Spanish. It's going to be a bit of an odd one. I think Team Liquid said they would hot drop Falcons before the PGSs and then didn't, so I'm not sure how much I believe in it. And once again, on the other side stands a FaZe Clan that is the most stubborn EMEA team. I feel like this one could actually happen, but it just doesn't make sense. You would love to get away from the hot drop, but nobody wants to show weakness, right? Nobody wants to be that team that leaves, because what keeps other teams from hot dropping you if you always are the one leaving? Tego looks quite peaceful here. FaZe Clan getting their Hosan drop spot means they aren't hot dropping Pero in Buxansa, and then the rest of the map is nicely split apart. Falcons in Terminal as well, very center loot spot, something that they enjoy playing from, but they have shown that they can also play from the edges. Rondo, we have the Hongshan hot drop, where BB and Rock both want to go. They both had really mixed success this year, so that's going to be an interesting one. I don't expect it to happen. We've seen Hongshan hot drops where both teams dodged in the first game before, and then suddenly realized, oh, okay, and maybe we should be going back. But again, we'll see. I think for a BB, this makes a ton of sense. They love playing their edge slow as well, get the south glider spawns and start playing in from there. They also have VP next to them, which is kind of a big thing because they know exactly how VP plays. So it's kind of nice to have a team next to you where you have the info, where you know what they're going to do. And it's much worse to play next to a team that you don't know as well and you can't read the early rotations. Shout out again for Zenny. That is a crazy bot that does the drop maps, and that's a super nice feature to have. Twire Fantasy is of course back for PGC 2025, and they have over 1 million G-Coin in prizes, some Wu-Ting keyboards, which are basically the best in the business, so some sick stuff. If you've never played Fantasy before, there is 0.2 rounds, you now get 2 points for a kill. You get 5 points for surviving and 1 point for 100 damage that the player deals, minus 3 points for dying in the first 10 minutes. You get 100,000 money. Something to build your team, and you gotta build a team of 4 players and a sub. The sub will only come in if one of your main players can't play. Now, what's really important here is, and where a lot of people lose immediately, is obviously the lobbies change between the days. We're gonna start Group A and then we're gonna play Group B. So between those days, you have to change your players. Otherwise, you're just not gonna get any points. You can look at the format page here, where it basically will always tell you when you have to change for the next time, or every time a day is gonna start, you just go into your Twire Fantasy and pick a new team. When you're looking at the day 1, we have some crazy heavy hitters there. We have Twist, 17, TE, and DNF in the lobby. Everyone else is going to be much cheaper. My strategy is always look for really cheap players first, and then see how many of the big dogs I can afford. Unless I can afford Shrimzy or Example, then I always buy Shrimzy or Example. Example's been underperforming a little bit in some of the recent tournaments fantasy-wise, but he's still the absolute GOAT. And I think I personally prefer picking him over Expendables players, because Expendables is sometimes really bad, but you can't argue with the fact that Tanavu is one of the best players in the world. So when he pops off, he gets insane amount of points. Boostic is now 18k. I think he's not as much of a bargain anymore as he was in the PGSs. He started on 10k in the first PGS. That was an immediate insta pick for everybody. But who's cheap now is Geeky. So I would probably look to lock in a Diffix immediately, and then look for another cheap player here towards the bottom end, which is for me maybe a win or die player. They're all incredibly cheap and deservingly so, right? They haven't played an international and they haven't even done super great at the last regional, but Levante is an absolute monster, so I think you kind of should be, you can really afford to get that guy in. And then if you're picking Levante and Diffix, you can literally afford whatever 2 other players you want. So that's a strategy. And then the other kind of strategy is trying to pick medium players that you're pretty sure are going to do well. Like you pick a Bean, maybe pick a Little Ghost, because they're on good teams, they're on solid teams. Bean is pretty cracked himself. You go for a Delwyn and you hope that he runs it. A lot of people kills them early game, and then you still have 25,000 left to afford an arena player. Something like that can work out, but my strategy is always try and find the cheapest budget players and then pair them up with the big guns. I'll repeat this one more time. You have to make sure that you got your roster updated between every stage change, which is going to be a lot of them. You can leave your roster the same for all 3 days of the last chance or all 3 days of the finals, but during the group stage and after the group stage and after the last chance, you have to update. Otherwise, you're just not going to have a chance to keep up with all the other players. Top 3 gets a Wooting keyboard. The top 100 gets in-game skins plus G-Coin, and then plus TP, which is Twire coins, and then you can use those Twire coins in the store. Buy yourself some hardware, buy yourself some G-Coin, all kinds of things. There's also Pickems in game where you can get yourself some nice skins, so you can get yourself an org or a helmet or other nice little goodies if you participate in the Pickem challenge and the team face-offs. The team face-offs are completely free, and you just basically you pick what team you think will do better in the event overall. You get much bigger values if you pick a team that not everybody else is picking. This will end before the game starts, so here you want to wait until the very end so you actually have a good idea of the odds, because these odds could in theory, right? They won't, but they could in theory still shift, and then you might not be getting what you want out of this. So it's always good to wait a little bit until the very end to make these votes. Just don't forget. You'll get some of the esports points here. If you get your hands on coupons by buying the esports skins, buying the bundles, or doing some missions in the game, then you can vote on who will do well in the tournament overall, and you get more points for a first place pick, but you also get points for a 6th place. So you just basically have to pick teams that are doing well. This is in 23 days from recording, which means you can wait for the group stages to be over and you can know who plays the finals before you pick this. So don't pick this before the event starts, if you want to win, that is. Getting yourself the esports skins is going to the store and buying the bundles. I've already bought them all, so you can't see them here. What's really important is when you buy one of these big bundles, then you still have to buy the small bundles, but they will become 0 G-Coin, but you still have to buy them for 0 G-Coin to get yourself the additional coupon. Same thing is true for all the big bundles. If you do buy these skins, you are directly supporting the prize pool. 25% of all the sales goes into the prize pool. So we started at 1.5 million and we're hopefully gonna bump that up to at least 2 million. We'll see how it goes. It launched right during the Porsche collab, so it's gonna tank a bit there, but still a lot of days left. So maybe we can pump these numbers up. Hope I summed up everything important. I know there could be more detail on all those things, but it's really hard to predict what's gonna happen. We've seen this in the past. It's the same with hot drops as with teams performing. It's incredibly hard. So I'm just excited to see it all unfold. Hope you guys are too. We'll see you guys on the streams.